Morning, everybody. John Sfiocchi here for GAI Insights. We have Adam Rappaport, Luda Kopakina, Paul Byer, and myself today. I'm reporting to you from beautiful MIT here in Kendall Square, the heart of where AI was actually born. So there we go. We've got a number of interesting articles this morning. All right. If we could please start off with the first one, Luda.
Yes, the article is from DeepMind, Google DeepMind, Coral NPU, a full stack platform for edge AI.
All right, Adam, what did you think about this one?
So this is some interesting stuff. It certainly shapes sort of the vision of where things are going and how important continuous processing at the edge is going to be, and the emphasis that Google is putting on it with this. I mean, it's somewhere on the edge between research and product announcement. Certainly cool. It's an NPU is a neural processing unit, and they've had one called Coral already, and this is the Coral NPU. And the thing is here is that they've really consolidated the entire stack of the architecture. Instead of having like a CPU and a separate machine learning and then the fabric between them, it's all in this one neural processing unit. The promise is that it's going to be incredibly efficient, that for people who are looking at IoT development at the edge, hardware designers, people like that, ML developers, this is going to be a really great way for them to get into development, get into understanding how to build efficient edge AI devices that really need continuous use. So they have to be very, very power efficient so that they can operate with the kind of constraints on power and battery that you often find in IoT scenarios. All that being said, this is probably optional and still too forward looking for AI leaders who are just trying to figure out basic strategies around GenAI adoption.
Yeah, I mean, they've got this abstraction layer now, so you don't have to write to every single device and such, which makes, I mean, architecturally makes a lot of sense. But there's others out there like Snapdragon from Qualcomm and others. Luda, what do you think?
Yeah, I actually think it is important. I was between optional and important. The reason for importance is coming from Google. It's a very orchestrated platform. It's open source, and it's now time for these on the edge platforms that we've been seeing built to start being executed and utilized, right? So this is an orchestrator that I think will make it happen. And for that reason, it might be important.
Paul, where are you?
Yeah, definitely optional for me. It's clearly a product announcement. I think we got to continue to help the industry get the language to start spreading small models that are on devices versus small models that are just used in hosting centers. And I think the use cases for these things are going to be drones and physical robots. I think that's probably the highest adoption area, but optional.
Yeah, I was optional as well. I do think that this notion of the edge developer versus the ML developer and what that architecture might look like, which hasn't really settled down. We've got the neural processing unit, we've got the we have the central processing unit, and how you think about the architecture of inference is still evolving. But to me, they're not. They're an important voice. They're not the market leader on this thing. There's other models out there. To me, this is down the stack for the AI leader in terms of solution choice. All right, next.
Okay, next comes from Cognition, introducing SWE grep and SWE grep mini. It's reinforcement learning for multi-turn fast context retrieval. So this is for coders, and it's an optimization that you can optimize with Devin.
Yeah, I thought, again, in the area, I took this article in the area of optimization of, the most important domain for AI use, which is, coding. I think it's an interesting article. I've had this as optional for our AI leader. Cognition is a good supplier here. What they've been able to do in terms of response time, taking these two models, dealing with a combination of embedded search versus agentic search. And we have seen this notion of when you get agentic search, there's a lot of chattiness. Something that could have been a very straightforward, simple query, for example, begins to be a conversation between and among agents to see what the verification is and how truth is defined. So I think that the general observation that we're going to have optimization with different kinds of approaches for inference is true. However, I don't think that this is a major new contribution in that area. And this notion of value engineering for inference, as we see people move, in our maturity model from level 2, which is islands of innovation, to level 3, which is system and scaling, that this issue of inference value engineering is going to be a dominant issue because of the importance of the cost of AI in the context of actual implementation at scale. But this, to me, is just a small addition to that important coda of work. But what'd you think, Adam?
Yeah, John, I'm pretty much right where you are. I think it's great though when you realize that this kind of innovation, literally, then in it they say, don't do anything differently. You'll just notice the behavior in Devon is better, and in windsurf it's better. And like that, underneath all of these effective wrappers, like the innovation is still happening, and these things can just get better, and people keep building on top of them. So it's I think another point on that line in terms of the acceleration that they talk about, and the way that's really going to expand into that development base, but probably for the AI leader, an optional read.
Luda?
Yeah, optional for me.
I don't even have to ask Paul.
You don't even have to ask me, John. Thank you. After 430 shows, you should know where I am on this.
Super optional on this one. I don't know. You surprised me once in a while. Okay, next, please.
Okay, next is a use case about how Moloko is powering the future of retail media with AI vector search. It comes from Google Cloud, and it's a use case actually describing all the 3 pieces of the problem, the implementation, and the results. So I rated it as important because it seems like this, even though it's a vendor promotion, if you will, it describes the next generation of ad platforms for retail media. And it's essentially AI first, using large scale catalogs and vector search that increases the throughput and enables a contextual understanding of ads and personalization in real time. So, and they had an uptick of 4%. So I think it's an important one. I looked, Moloko is a profitable 200 million company, and they're really pushing AI first capabilities for mid-size retailers who don't have the ML or AI expertise to put it together themselves. So I think it's an important development and ahead of other similar companies.
All right, we got a vote for important here. Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, what's important here? Echoing Luda's things, I think it's really notable that these, mid-sized companies, let's call them 50 million to 200 million, at least have the capability to get their executive team around some innovation. So I think that's pockets of innovation we want to continue to watch and monitor. And how we get around massive data sets, product data sets, is critical, particularly as we start seeing product data sets, get linked into product schemas that come from ChatGPT and others. So this whole notion of how you find products is radically changing, and this is starting to go down that path. It needs to be monitored, but this article is important.
Adam, where are you?
I was leaning a little bit more towards the optional side. At the end of the day, it didn't explain enough to me about how they did it to enable other people to understand, other than buying their product. Which is sort of the final destination of the article. So it just ended up being a little too much of a product announcement and not enough value for me to take away. It is an important concept, but it didn't seem to sort of enable people enough to actually go and deliver on this themselves.
Yeah, I landed on important as well, but I was on the light side of important. This notion of vector search and how what the evolving semantics are in terms of getting people to solutions, and satisfying their intent. As this points out, there's many things in shopping that we put into categories like I want to buy hiking boots, when in fact you might be interested in a whole set of things around being outdoors, right? And traditional search mechanisms are insufficient to really discover that intent. And I think one of the beautiful things about these models is that you can start to express things that are more about what you're trying to get done, how you're trying to get it done, what the context is, what the trade-offs are, you can really combine a lot of attributes that matter to you, in terms of your intent and what you're trying to get done, much richer than a simple Google search. So I think that notion of vector search being a critical part of that, brought to you by Google. But I agree with you. And the good news is it has got some economics and a little bit about the architecture, but it's not like some of the great cases.
It brings awareness to a very important point. So it's probably worthwhile keeping.
And what would enable the next AI infrastructure? What are the critical pieces? They certainly highlight that. And for that, I think it's important.
Very good. Let's do it. Important it is. So we had a no-hitter going, but we still have something here.
Okay, so the next one comes from AWS as a use case, and the title is How TP-ICAP Transformed CRM Data into Real-Time Insights with Amazon Bedrock. It's interesting. It's a part of Salesforce, right? Or using CRM, Salesforce CRM, but they decided to go aside and build their own.
Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, now on this one, I do think it's important, and I think it's a really interesting use case, and I think it's a really interesting point even to illustrate that they considered what was already in Salesforce and the capabilities there, and realized that building it themselves in this case and extracting the data that they own and have access to within it could be more customized, cost-effective, and more accurately meet their requirements. So it's a really cool example of where you can actually start to reevaluate the buy versus build and not necessarily be locked into what a vendor's delivering in terms of a solution within the third-party products. So for that reason alone, it was great. But then, as we often see with Amazon, it goes under the hood and it provides fairly extensive detail about how they actually delivered on the solution. So maybe not essential, but a really important use case.
Yeah, I mean, really well laid out. Paul, what'd you think?
Ditto. I don't have much to add other than, John, I know you and I had a call with one of the hyperscalers on Friday, and I want to go back and get 6 or 8 as AWS and send it to her, because that hyperscaler needs to be following this.
And you read the article?
Oh, important.
All righty. Okay, Luda, Adam, more important. Luda, anything else?
Yeah, important. I like this case. I really do.
All righty. Important it is. Next, please.
Next is from Phil Schmidt, and it's talking about agents 2.0, from shallow loops to deep agents. So this, from my perspective, is a primer, and it talks about what actually an agent is. It's a while loop in software lingo with a user prompt that fed to LLM and just loops until you get a good result. And then he provides an architecture of agent 2.0 that does some planning, has an orchestrator, has a memory that you can write and read out of, aside, right, not in the context window, and then it spawns agents in real time or pre-planned to get the job done. So it's a deeper architecture. He goes why it's important, and I thought this is an important article as a primer, if not essential, actually, because it's useful. Now everybody's talking agents. This is a very well laid out primer.
All right, in the pregame, Adam, you had this as optional. What's up?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Luda. I guess I'm trying to understand how to differentiate this from what I already hear people talking about, either master agents or multi-agent systems. And it's in some way confusing to me because it's trying to introduce this whole new concept of agent 2.0 and a deep agent. And in some ways, for me, I think there's just too much already going on about trying to define this in new ways that it seemed to be a good primer, but not necessarily of something we want people to have as their source of truth, because it's sort of one guy just trying to come up with a simple way to describe it.
Yeah, in my book, it is multi-agents, Adam. It's just he calls.
You talk about an orchestrator and sub-agents and
yeah.
specific tools and. There's probably better ways to lay that out than to give this to people as a foundation.
But he does describe it really well, so that's why I kind of.
Yeah, he does.
But
you make a good point. You put me on the fence at least.
I understand I understand your point as well. That is confusing.
Yeah, I think Langchain was the one who started out with the notion of deep agents, or at least that's who he credits in this thing. What do you think, Paul? Is this fluffy, not stuffy? What's up?
No, I'm right with Adam. I mean, I think there's way too much confusion on agents, and that's why I think the move, at least in my mind, the move towards what the agents do, orchestrator, double checker, proofreader, is much more useful, not only for the business people, but also for the coders as well. Because, I don't want to see a JIRA ticket that says do a deep agent for this and have 3 engineers have a different definition of it. So, optional.
Optional, too sloppy in terms of presentation. I had it last night as important, but as I hear you guys, I think I'm going to go optional. Optional it is. Last and next.
Okay, so the last one is a research article. Sorry, it's called "LLMs Can Get Brain Rot." Oh, and Kaj is not here.
Yeah, I can go ahead and take it.
I went optional and John went essential, so let's just get right into it.
Excellent. Finally, some controversy.
Yeah, let me make the case for essential. So here we've got basically this issue of, I think we have a different kind of maintenance over time. We've always had technical debt and things like that, and the idea of, maintaining software. It's just on a red line train in Boston this morning. They're obviously having software problems in that 45-year-old system. For me, this really making people aware that, look, if these models are out sampling lousy data, it's not only the obvious thing of garbage in, garbage out, you're going to get bad results, but also it subverts the model in very different ways. Like the kind of bad behavior you get is not always predictable, and the models sometimes even hide their own bad behavior, as we've seen in a number of the research studies. So this idea of somebody at scale, again, back to our maturity model, if you're at level 3, that is scale and deployment, then then this issue of making sure that the inputs to the model are clean and robust, and monitoring the quality of the model, I think is essential. So to me, this I thought was a good articulation, nice research into how to think about brain rot, and it draws inspiration from the idea that we're all getting brain rot from consuming bad information in lazy ways, and so I think that this to me is a new frontier. It's really thinking. It's almost like the way the manufacturers think about building physical things, or especially I did some work for a glass company one time. Something like a glass plant. The silica you put in, the way you heat it, the additives you have, in a continuous flow process like that can radically impact the quality of the glass, 24, 48, or even a week later. And that kind of flow thinking and thinking about transactions, data access, and updating the models with that same kind of quality flow thinking, I think is important, because I think that's different than launching software. But what do you think, Adam? Make the case the other way as to why this is optional.
You've already used way too much time on this article.
Well,
okay. Put your hand up if you know anyone who is doing continual pre-training anywhere near production. How many people even know what continual pre-training is? You can talk about brain rot and its hyperbole. The research underneath this, which isn't even peer reviewed yet, is interesting. I agree, John. But you could spend a lot of time getting into a lot of speculation or about a lot of stuff that's derailing people from what they should be focusing on right now.
And the article essentially makes the point: garbage in, garbage out.
Which we already knew.
That's already something deeply. So it's triple, or quadruple in Paul's lingo, optional for me. It's really
a nothing burger, and we haven't had one of those for breakfast in a while.
It's really not saying anything. Sorry.
I am sad for your failure of imagination, Paul.
I'm looking for my nothing burger. Yeah, no, man, I think if we're EIO for research, maybe, I do love brain rot and work slop. So I do like all the new terms, but this is optional.
Okay, optional it is. Okay, that's it for today. Let's see, we've got a couple importance, no essentials.
We have 2 importance and 4 optionals.
Yes, and no essentials. All right, Paul.
Yeah, announcements to today's our learning lab, which is 4 Pacific and 7 Eastern. We're having Ed Rich is going to show us a documentary that he built with Sora 2. So he's been a professional television documentary for 15 years. He's been pushing the envelope here in Boston here, and it's really stunning. So it'll be a great way to actually not just see these little Mr. Rogers things everyone's have on the internet, but actually a real life. So that's one. And then secondly, we continue this week with our free training. We have Copilot at noon Eastern tomorrow. That's Tuesday, and ChatGPT on Thursday, and they've been extremely well received. Those are free. Stop by. Multiple people have gone to multiple ones because they keep telling us they pick up something else. So if you want to be an AI first professional, you need to get your skills up, and this is a great way to do it.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other announcements, Adam, Luda?
Yep.
All righty. Bye, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great AI day. Bye-bye now.